communication technologies. Within the Ministry of Education, they're talking about developing the college park concept. And again, all of that is lent, the plan lends support to those issues. But going back to the tourism sector, we need to probably diversify, the source of our visitors. So even, I'm happy that last week I understand tourism officials were in Russia, for instance, India and China. Those places are opening up. Imagine with 1 billion people, if, let's say 10% of the Chinese persons get an increase in income and they could start to travel. So I think as we go about, the plan talks a lot about diversification, and I think that is key to overcoming our dependence on the U.S. market. But I think for the foreseeable future, it's fair to say that that dependence will be there. And the thing about the subprime crisis, which is really affecting the U.S. market, it shows how interdependent and how interconnected all of the world is, and that is something which we need to certainly be cognizant of as we go about planning our budgets and expenditure strategies in the future.
More particularly, I'd like to find out, in the U.S., they're having a bit of a housing crisis, and I know that, especially like in Providenciales, when you're talking about buying a home, you're talking about spending over $1 million.
Wow, that's a lot.
And in the U.S., a home can go for something like $35,000, $50,000. How does their problem there affect us?
Well, my understanding of the subprime crisis is simply that, in the past, when banks used to depend on their deposit base to make loans, they were a little more prudent in terms of who they give a loan to. You had to have like a certain percentage, equity contribution, certain income security or whatever. So my understanding is that in the U.S., what they really did over the last few years was they sort of relaxed those, requirements. So you find that people could get loans for houses with very little down. My understanding in the Turks and Caicos is that if you are going to be getting a mortgage loan, that you need to have some equity, that you need to have some job stability, and all of that. So I think to the extent that we are still being very strict as far as who we extend mortgages to. There are rules like a person's total debt service shouldn't be more than a certain percentage of their income and all of that. I think that gives us a sort of security that wouldn't happen. I think again to the extent that people U.S. citizens might be borrowing against their homes in the U.S. to buy a condominium or something in Turks and Caicos, and to the extent that the value of that condominium in the U.S. might be declining, you have a declining asset, I think then that is certainly a cause for concern. Or to the extent that persons who are actually building condominium developers here might be having to borrow in a market which is tightening, hence we call it the credit crunch, when certainly there is cause for concern. But I think generally speaking, given the fact that we are targeting high net worth individuals, I think whilst we need to be ever vigilant about it, I believe that there is some sort of some security that we can count on from that having a limited impact here.
Okay, and while we look at finances, I noticed that within the past few years, we've been seeing banks expanding. We've even opened our own bank.
Sure.
And I understand another bank is coming in, if not more than. What is this saying for our economy?
Well, what it is saying is that there is deepening within the financial sector, which is always good for the consumer because you have more choice. With more competition, you can get better rates for loans and better products. So I think that's a good thing. And if you have big name players here, it says to people outside of the Turks and Caicos that the Turks and Caicos is a credible place, is open for business, and it means that we have arrived. So I think that's a good thing round and round.
How does the 10-year plan address this to hold it?
Well, again, the 10-year development plan does see the strengthening of the financial sector as a second strategy. It also talks about greater empowerment, of Turks and Caicos Islanders, where we are in a position to access credit to do more than just, an apartment or something, but where we can have, deeper stakes in the economy. So the fact that you have, let's say, for instance, Turks and Caicos Bank, you have Limited, you have TC Invest. There's a proposal to establish Turks and Caicos Islands Development Agencies. I think all of these are initiatives which should allow our Turks and Caicos Islanders to realize their entrepreneurial endeavor and be again at the forefront of the development process as opposed at the periphery looking in and potentially being marginalized in the process. So deepening and expansion in the financial sector is certainly consistent with empowering Turks and Caicos Islanders, which is strongly endorsed in the plan.
Strongly endorsed. And that is something that leaps out to some of the Turks and Caicos Islanders who may find that they're not getting what they think that they should get.
Well, sure. Again, one of the good concepts that the plan talks about is it's totally against developing some sort of entitlement mandate, whereby, well, because I'm a Turks and Caicos Islanders, I'm entitled to this. What the plan talks a lot about is being a concept of fit to be first, meaning that we want to develop we want to be the masters in this space, but we have to remember with globalization that in truth and in fact, our economy is going to have to compete with other economies, small island economies. So what we're talking about is developing a concept of Turks and Caicos Islanders first, where they can stand in this economy, but then they can hold their heads high and compete effectively in other economies. So we're talking about high standards of excellence when it comes to education and other endeavor. We're talking about good values, punctuality, reliability, accountability. So it's a concept of firstness which is, thinking beyond just this economy. But how do we say probably, if we use Singapore for an example. Singapore was in 1965, what you may call just an entry port. People thought it didn't have much development prospects. But today, Singapore is a first world country with probably a higher internet penetration than, say, North America. So we're talking about firstness, but firstness based on high achievement, high excellence. And that's what the plan talks more about.
Keeping it on the level of the individual and the plan, what do you find as you go from island to island, the individual asking for this plan to include?
Well, I think most people, and again it varies from island to island, because like I said, we went to Grand Turk, went to all of the islands, and I think most people agree that it's important to have a plan. I think most people are happy with the way development is taking place right now, and they are concerned that we should sustain that. So you find if you go to northern Middle Caicos, people will talk about the infrastructure development, the causeway, the airports. So they're happy that the plan, because like I said, the plan builds on and it goes beyond what is happening now. So a lot of the projects that are ongoing, people are talking about. So whereas the government is currently finishing the first link of the spine road, the plan suggests that we should set a national development objective that every government in the future should embrace to finish the spine road. So you find there's unison there. You talk about in the health sector, people are again, pleased with the fact that hospitals will be coming, but people are again saying, well, sure, you're building these hospitals, well, there might be some cost implications. You come to, say, a place like Grand Turk, people are pleased with the fact that there is the Carnival project going on, but there are concerns that we need to, take steps to improve the aesthetics of the environment in the communities, such that we can piggyback on Carnival to do more onshore, activities. So I think what you find is that people generally, there's a welcome for the plan. There's a lot of commonality when it comes to the real high national priorities, like to address issues in the medical area or the hospitals, the bigger infrastructure projects, something like to do at Providenciales Airport, the need to make sure that the local people have access to credit and education so that they can be at the fore of the development process. And I think some people are concerned that maybe we are growing a little too fast, and they would probably like to see their island sort of have some development, but not to go too fast. So some people say, no, we can't replicate on Sulky or North Caicos Provo. So again, it depends on, so again, what I'm saying is that what we are doing, we gather the views of the people, and we try to capture that adequately. We had frank discussions with the people in a very open manner, and we give people an opportunity to express themselves. And what we have is a sort of, I think to use the governor's expression when he was at the last workshop, like a roadmap, right? And hopefully we'll be able to adopt the majority of what was said, but at the same token, we have a framework now where people, both public and the private sector, could debate issues that affect the country, so the country can get the best out of the development prospects.
Okay, well, it looks like half hour is just not enough, and we're going to have to do this again. But of course, as you say, you'll be taking this message and listening to all of the people in the various islands as you go along. We still have another few months to finish it, and I wish you well and can't wait to talk to you again so that we can hear more about the 10-year national plan.
Well, let me say thanks for having me, and thanks to all of my colleagues in my former department and Ministry of Finance. Thanks to the government for giving us the money and the opportunity to go and speak to people. And as I said, the plan is all about addressing real issues facing real people. And as far as I'm concerned, we only now start the plan. We have to keep consulting with the people so that we can, make informed decisions about, issues and challenges facing the Turks and Caicos Islands. So I'd welcome the opportunity to come on the show with some more persons, because like I said, development is a very dynamic thing, and the more persons involved in it, the more stakeholders, the better. So I would certainly like to avail myself of the opportunity to come back on the show. Thanks again.
And thank you again. And thank you for watching TCI Behind the Scenes with your host, Yasmin Rigby Blues.